What's up, guys? Jen Palco here, and today the universe is not aligning with me and shooting a video, so I'm kind of just holding it here. It's going to be very casual. I tried doing it in the other room. There's better lighting than the bedroom here, but my phone battery is getting low, so I had to plug it in, and the cord is only so long, and it's like wrapped around. I have like a microphone, so everything's kind of wrapped around and stuff like that. So don't mind any kind of shakiness. Sorry it's so close to my face, but I thought it was appropriate. Today I'm going to talk about anxiety a little bit. So what is anxiety? Anxiety, it gets a bad rep, right? I'm just going to walk around because sorry if I look naked because I have like I just worked out a little, and actually I was doing some animal flow, and I have like the Apple TV, and I couldn't get the remote to work on my phone, and it was like 25 minutes of like trying to figure that out. So it's been kind of like frustrating, or I was just getting angry. And I'm not even looking into the camera here. So let's see. So I'm all jumbled up today, all this I don't know, discombobulated, you could say. And I'm standing in the little terrace, is that what you call it? And there's a lot of plants around me, picture of my grandparents, and some like dirty bandanas and stuff like that from working out. And then we got my dog. Where is she? Leia. She's curled up in her little ball as usual. And okay, so anxiety. What exactly is anxiety? It gets a bad rep all the time, and a lot of people have it. This morning I was feeling a little anxious, I must say, just because things were kind of like not working for me, and I let it get the best of me, and I'm okay now, but at the time it was very frustrating, and I was getting like that anxious feeling inside. So what exactly is anxiety? Anxiety, a lot of people have it. Some people have it on a more chronic level where it actually interferes with their daily tasks, their daily lives. Other people claim they have anxiety, but they're just more anxious, like I was this morning. So kind of like a temporary anxious feeling, which is normal human emotion, right, for people. So this video I'm gonna kind of explain anxiety a little bit from a different type of concept, and also ways that you can help reduce it in your life, whether you have more of a chronic anxiety or just you're feeling anxious about something. So what exactly is anxiety? So anxiety is a term that we've put on something for certain feelings, right? So for some people it's a medical diagnosis, and anxiety symptoms could be stuff like sweating, sweaty hands, feeling heart palpitations, just feeling this overwhelming feeling of this shallow breathing. You can't breathe, almost like a panic attack for a lot of people, and just a feeling of almost lightheadedness for some as well. And sorry, I'm getting the curtain in the way here because I'm just like, this is just like not going to be a steady video, but it's all good. It's all good. So there's all these symptoms that are a collection of symptoms where it's labeled as anxiety, or feeling anxious can be collection symbols. Your body's going in this mode where fight or flight, and it's just getting all worked up, and whether that's feeling lightheaded, or you can't take a deep breath, and you start freaking out, right? And you start freaking out, and you worry, and all that kind of stuff. So when it comes down to it, anxiety is not a good feeling for a lot of people. Okay. It doesn't have to be a bad feeling. I mean, some people get anxious before like a first date or a job interview and stuff like that. So that could be not necessarily, it's not good nor bad. It's just a feeling we get. But a lot of times we've put a label on it that it's bad, right? That anxiety is bad. So what I'm going to tell you is what I feel like a lot of books and a lot of videos and people who talk about anxiety some of them will kind of mention, you know, to let it run through you, let it run its course, which is absolutely correct. So really, the first thing is to not resist anxiety. So the more you resist anxiety, the more you're actually strengthening it. So we have something called, in our world, called pendulums. And these are a concept from the book Reality Transurfing by Vadim Zeland, who's a Russian physicist. And this book makes a lot of sense. And it allows you to kind of think outside the box a little bit about your reality, how you're creating your reality through your thoughts and actions and things that you do, and how to change it, how to shift your reality. Not in this weird paranormal way, even though it might seem like that to some people. But in the book, it talks about things called pendulums, which are basically these collective thought structures. Okay? And the more that people feed into these thought structures, the more the pendulum grows and it tries to suck you in and all that kind of thing. It doesn't have to be an evil. There are more positive pendulums, say, you know, support groups and you know, motivational speakers, or something like art or creative tendencies, that kind of thing. And then pendulums that are seen more as negative could be politics, or could be, you know, the news, for example, that's always trying to suck you into their world and make you think a certain way. It could be just society as a giant pendulum, and certain things in society try to suck you in and make you think a certain way, how you're supposed to act, how you're supposed to feel, how you're supposed to be in your lifetime. And anything outside the norm is going to create a little bit of tension. Okay, so a pendulum, it's basically a collective structure of energy that gains momentum and gains strength by people feeding into it, And a lot of times in our lives, we have pendulums all around us that are constantly coming at us, and we don't realize that we're actually feeding into these things, you know, feeding into these things in our society, and it's actually changing how we're living. Okay, so anxiety could actually be considered a giant pendulum, because we've given a label on anxiety as this bad, negative thing that we're not supposed to feel. So a lot of people will resist it, because that's the natural tendency, that they don't want to feel bad, and they're going to resist this thing, okay, that is making them feel just horrible. Okay, so realize that anxiety is a pendulum that has been fed, okay, and has been fed through society, through beliefs, through a medical diagnosis. And realize that, you know, even if you're diagnosed with a certain disease or illness, realize that that's not who you truly are. You're not your disease, you're not your illness. That is a label that society has slapped on you based on signs and symptoms to fit into this little box, right? To fit into this little box. So if I told you that that you don't need to fit into this little box, that you have the choice to be yourself and not be a victim to this illness or this disease or this feeling you have, then it might shift your thoughts a little bit. So the number one thing, the number one secret that you can do is to drop the importance. Drop the importance on anxiety, okay? So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, okay, let the anxiety run through you. Don't resist it, of course, because resisting it is actually going to create an imbalance, and it's going to feed it and give it more strength. But drop importance in that everything you've learned about anxiety as being bad, as being this horrible thing, just take it for what it is, okay? You're having an anxious feeling, and recognize that what you're feeling is a human reaction to something, a feeling based on past thoughts, beliefs. Usually it's based on a past experience you've had. You're feeling anxiety because something might have happened, years ago, where you felt anxious toward a certain situation, or traveling to a certain location. You don't want to get in the car because it's making you queasy, and you're getting that feeling again. It's usually because something has happened in your past, and you have the ability to change that. You have the ability to reduce the importance on it. So when you give something excess importance, it could be anything, but in this case, we're talking about anxiety. You are actually feeding it more energy, and it's going to strengthen. It's going to strengthen, and you're going to get more of it. So once you learn how to reduce importance and not put all of your attention on this feeling of anxiety, is the moment you can kind of you can weaken this pendulum, or not let it suck you in. Okay, so be an observer but not a participator. You can be an observer but not a participator. So you can observe your thoughts, your feelings, everything that's running through you. Okay, but don't participate in the feeling. Don't let your brain take over and say, oh my God, like I'm getting this anxious feeling. I need it to stop. I need it to stop. I need it to stop. Let it run through you. Let it take its course. Realize that it's a human. It's just this feeling that you're having, this feeling, and feel it. Like feel it. Pay it. But don't place so much importance on it where that is your sole focus. That the only thing you're thinking about right now is how to stop this anxiety from coming. Okay, so reducing the importance, reducing this excess importance that you've put, almost like you've put anxiety on a pedestal up here, right? And the more you do that, the more you're throwing off the balance in your life, and the more it's going to feed off your energy, and it's actually going to suck up your energy. It's going to drain you of your body's natural energy stores. So the more you can learn to just observe and not let it suck you in, the more you'll actually get energy from it, gain it back. Okay, so the first thing is to reduce the importance. Reduce the importance of the labels that you've put on yourself. Realize that you're not your illness. Okay, your illness, you're having these physical symptoms, but you have a choice on your perspective on illness, or whatever you want to call it. Illness gets a very negative sense, and why is that? That's because it's outside of the norm of this little box that our society is placing on you. It's saying, okay, you're not healthy. You're outside of this norm that we've set based on these perimeters, and based on these tests and things like that. And we're confirming for you that, you are an outcast in society. Therefore, you need treatment, or you need to always focus on having this illness, and this is like who you are. This is your identity. But that's not your identity. Your identity is much more than that. Your identity goes deeper than just your physical self. So anytime you give in to placing a label on yourself, you're basically just reconfirming that as your reality, as your truth, as your identity. You're identifying with being the victim, in a sense, okay? And that goes with anxiety. You're identifying with anxiety, and you're reconfirming to yourself that you are an anxious person, or that you have anxiety, that you have this thing, okay, that we've put a label on, okay? So reduce the importance, let it run through you, recognize it, but don't put it on a pedestal, okay? Just realize that this is what you're feeling, but it's not who you are. It's not who you are. Okay, so the other thing you could do is write a new story for yourself. Like I said, this goes back to these labels we've put on ourselves and identifying with an illness or something bad. Anxiety is not good nor bad. We've labeled it as bad because we don't feel good. We don't feel good when we have anxiety. It makes us feel uneasy. It makes us feel uncomfortable. It makes us feel like we're just want to, come out of our skin, right? But it's not good nor bad. Feelings are not good nor bad necessarily. I mean, yeah, we strive to always get to a place of feeling good because that's our body's natural state, and that's going to be expansive. But the more that you resist anything that doesn't make you feel aligned, okay, the more you resist it, the stronger it becomes. So what do you do in that case? You know, if you can't resist it, then what? You just accept that you're feeling anxious all the time and can't, you know, travel in a car, or you can't talk to people, or you can't go out of your house? No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is that you can feel it, but you can write a new story for yourself, okay? So maybe it's thinking back to a time where you did not have anxiety, where you felt great, you felt happy, okay? Put yourself in that vibration. Get back to that person, to that track of your life, okay? So in our lives, we have these infinite life tracks, okay? So you have life tracks that are where you're like on a really high vibration, where you're just like really enlightened, and then you have really low tracks, okay? And then you have your baseline, which is basically how you feel now, okay? So you can travel to any of these tracks depending on how you're feeling, depending on who you decide to be, who you choose to be for that day, okay? And your reality is going to reflect the life track that you're vibrating at, what you're resonating at, okay? So like for example, this morning when I was feeling frustrated and stuff like that, I brought myself to a lower track, but then, you know, I could try to bump myself up to a different version of myself, a parallel version of myself, whatever you want to call it, by doing something creative, which I'm doing now, and just kind of talking it through and getting my mind, you know, focused on better things, okay? Not focusing on the negative stuff, not focusing on anxiety, focusing on stuff that makes you feel good, okay? Focus on stuff that makes you feel good. So if you are feeling anxious, if there's any way that you can just think about anything that kind of brings you a little bit higher than where you are now, okay? And a lot of that is also, the other thing is focusing on your center screen. So being more present, okay? Realizing that anxiety is a projection of your brain into the future. And what is the future? The future has not happened yet. So the future is not an actual thing, okay? The only time we really have now is the present. You know, the past is we believe the past is real because our brain, the way our brain works, we think in a linear fashion. So we think that, you know, sometimes past experiences for certain people, they don't quite remember it. It's not actually how it actually went, okay, how their brains remembered it. I don't know, something interesting, if you ever heard of like the Mandela effect and stuff like that, that is an interesting example of people who all think, it's kind of like this, people all remember, like a bunch of people all remember the same thing from their childhood, but then they go Google it or look it up and realize that it never existed in the first place, or it was like spelled differently, you know, a book, or the name was different or something like that. It's very interesting, and a lot of people agree on it, and they say, no, this is how I remember it as a kid, you know. Jif peanut butter was Jiffy when I was a kid, or it was the Berenstain Bears, not the Berenstain Bears. And now when you look at it, it's the Berenstain Bears, and it's Jif, and it's very interesting, and it makes you kind of expand your thinking a little bit, you know, from just, oh yeah, like maybe there is something to this, like there are these different parallel tracks of life, and we're just kind of like too close-minded to realize it. But so what I want you to do is kind of expand your thinking a little bit about that, okay? And it's not paranormal where it's like you're going to transport yourself to a whole new life, a whole new, you know, I mean, it can happen if you completely resonate in a whole new, sorry, there's a gnat here, where you completely resonate in a whole new vibration and a whole new identity and stuff like that. But most people do not. You know, most of the time, your physical reality is going to manifest as similar tracks, okay, very close to. But you have the ability to bring yourself up to a higher track, to a higher vibration, resonate in that higher vibration, and not let yourself spiral downward, The last thing is to make light of anxiety. Not saying it's not a serious thing for a lot of people, because it does cause them a lot of suffering and they can't go about their day and stuff like that. But if you can, try to defeat the norm by kind of bringing it out of its element and making light of it. So give your anxiety a name. Call him Fred, call him Bob, call it Carla. You know, pretend it's this little cartoon character guy with a big nose who's always like nagging you and stuff like that. So if you could find any type of humor or make light of a situation, you are automatically reducing the importance on it. You are dropping the importance. You are not creating this thing on a pedestal, because you're viewing it as something, you know, that you would, if you viewed a cartoon character or you named him or you know, gave him a funny voice or something like that, it would kind of trick your brain a little bit into kind of bringing you up a level, a little bit up of a tract in your life. So that's the other thing, you know, make light of it a little bit. If you're really having a difficult time, just try to remain in that center screen for yourself. Try to be as present as you can in your body. So anxiety is purely in our heads and our egos, but if we can get back into our center screen, being in our body, we have an inner screen, which is more coming from our internal intentions and our heads, you know, our internal desires, and then we have outer intention, which is more of our environment and how our reality is bringing things to us, okay? And then we have our center screen, which is our kind of like our home base, okay? Where we're centered, where we're present, where we're conscious, where we realize that we are here. We just are, okay? We just are. And whenever we get anxiety is trying to pull us out of that center screen, and it's trying to bring us into this ego or this futuristic track that doesn't actually exist, okay? So you have to pull yourself back into the moment, into your body, actually feel into your body, and that's going to help a little bit. So reduce importance, try to make light of a situation if you can, and remain present, remain in your center screen, okay? That is going to help a little bit with reducing the anxiety, you know, and decide that you don't have to be who society, you know, says you are. You can be who you can resonate in whatever vibration you want. For a lot of people, it's difficult because they've been ingrained to believe a certain way. So me just telling you this, you may think that it's completely unrealistic, and you say, well, I have this chronic anxiety. This is serious. This is serious. By saying that not saying it's not serious. I mean, I'm sure it is serious for you, but realize that that's creating excess potential. That's creating excess importance on the illness, okay? And that in time is going to just kind of take over your life. Okay, so you can take the action steps to treat anxiety if you find that being present, center screen, all this stuff doesn't work, and you truly have a chronic condition, as the doctors, you know, say. If you truly have a chronic condition where you really can't function, then just expand your thinking a little bit. is all I want you to do. Okay, expand the thinking and realize that, or ask yourself a question. Do I really have a chronic condition, or is this me being conditioned over time? See, our subconscious is very powerful thing. It'll just take control of our lives, and we identify with our past belief system and how we've been programmed. So just because you've received a diagnosis, or just because you're identifying with how you're feeling, and you always have this feeling, you feel like you always have experienced this in the same situation, just realize that is a storyline that just keeps going and keeps playing in your mind, almost like an autopilot. Okay, so until you can kind of change the beliefs and your programming a little bit and identify with a new version of yourself, whether it's through meditation, or whether it's through reading books, or whether it's through just spending the time, or taking the time to be present with yourself and reducing importance and recognizing your past programming and why you're thinking the way you are, and why you feel like, today I'm going to have anxiety because I always have anxiety when I take the train, or something like that. Realize that you can change that. You can flip that. You can wake up and say, today is a new day, new version of myself. Okay, I'm going to try to reduce the importance. I'm going to reduce the importance. I'm not going to focus my attention. I'm going to work at making light of the situation, and I'm going to work through it. I'm going to work through it. I'm going to stay in my center screen. I'm going to stay in my body, and I'm going to be this person, this version of myself, a higher version of myself. I'm not going to let yesterday's anxiety, I'm not going to let yesterday's anxiety determine that today I have anxiety. Okay? I'm not going to let 10,000 past situations determine that today I'm going to just go through the same thing, because this is how it always goes. This is just like this repeated cycle of your brain, right? Decide today that I'm no longer going to feel this way. When I get anxious before a date, or I get anxious before a job interview, or traveling in my car on a busy highway, I am not going to let my past determine how I'm feeling today, because I have the choice how I want to feel. Okay, this is my body, this is my brain. I always have the choice how I want to feel, how I want to react to things, and we do that by reducing the importance.